I'm Ricky.
I'm Dana.
And we're RnD.
Were we really going to try to say that in unison?
Yeah, we were.
Oh.
Okay. Welcome to Reviews and Drinks, where we review
and drink.
We are a theater reviewer.
You didn't have to drink when I drank.
I know.
You're weird.
I know. We're talking today about the best of Cincinnati Fringe. This is what we talk about before we post just about any review.
So you get to see the behind the scenes before the magic of an actual review happens. We want to start on a sadder note.
We do want to start on a sadder note. Our little nugget, little dude, passed away right in the middle of Cincinnati Fringe, and it just devastated us.
We are still a little bummed, but we're starting to get back to normal, and we wanted to start out with our friends at Cincy Fringe. So, long live little dude. And let's talk about Cincy Fringe, which last year was our first ever Fringe festival.
It won Fringe of the Year for our Young-Howze Theater Awards. We never thought no one last year topped them. We were trying to get people to top like the magic that was Cincy Fringe, the community that was Cincy Fringe,
to kind of recreate what they created in such a little bit of time. I mean, the Fringe went up in May, and we all know the world exploded that March.
So when we got back to Cincy Fringe, it was like coming home. We've been reviewing their work all year.
Yep.
They are at the frontier of like some really great digital theater. We noticed that there was a great opportunity here to talk about the difference between video on demand and live streaming.
And we would argue that we don't have a preference.
No, we don't. We refuse to say that one is better than the other. It's like saying that coffee is much better than soda when they're two different things. People drink them for two different reasons. They're their own thing. So why don't we dive in and talk about the best of the live stream? Our first show we're talking about is One Easy Lie by DOCKERY. This was just to show him in his basement in Montauk. Montauk's in New York. And this is him just spinning a yarn about this elaborate thing about hitting a deer and then getting in a weird affair with the neighbor lady.
There was definitely murder.
There was some murder and burying bodies. And you're like, well, I know he's lying, but he made it so
Well, I think that's the interesting thing about this one is that we've seen other Martin Dockery things, and for the most part, I would bet you money that those were based on his real life,
whether you want it to or not.
From like seeing The Forbidden City to seeing what was his new show called? We're both gonna forget, aren't we?
Which new show? Oh, you're talking about
the one before this one.
Seeing his daughter. Are you talking about? He has so many shows. You're talking about his monthly streaming series. Yes. That one is just
you don't remember the name either.
No, I don't remember the name because you told me. It just flew out of my head the minute you talked. Anyway,
as you see, this is how we go before we do a review.
This is literally right now.
The shows we've seen before.
Right now.
Right now. Of course it is.
Yeah.
The shows we've seen before of his were very literal and very much like
it's a documentary, really.
Yeah, snapshots, one man stories about his own life. This one was the first time I had seen him do a story that I know was made up. But because I know he tells the truth most of the time when he's telling his stories, I was watching this going, oh my God, did he really kill somebody? And like, so I'm having to tell myself, he didn't kill anybody. That would be jail time.
I was like, he's confessing to a murder. Like right on camera. I was like, you think your wife's not going to find out?
I think she'll know. And then I was like, wait.
He's spinning a yarn. It's fiction.
We're fine. So, and I mean, it was right up there with the other sort of horror one person. We can't even say one person shows we've been seeing lately.
There has been this, the reason why I included this is that it really is one person horror has become a weird genre. Maybe it's just because of a pandemic. Maybe it's been around forever. Everyone we talked to about it was like, yes, I'm down. I got to write a one person horror next time. But this is another one that was very much a one person thriller. And Martin Dockery is really good at the live streaming.
He's really good at like telling his story in a way that you're on the edge of your seat no matter what he's talking about, from the mundane to the really kind of creepy edge of your seat
to the gross of ticks on body parts I won't mention here.
So excellent job by him. I expect nothing less. It was just really shocking to see a story that wasn't truly real.
And I love him because he uses the screen. He knows he's not going to move, and so he gets it, cuts it close.
And so you feel like you're talking to him,
mm-hmm.
like he could reach out, and he could reach out at any moment and like touch you.
And and it gets that really intimate feeling.
All right, next up on the docket would be
Continuum by Solasta Theater Group and Performance Gallery. Solasta Theater Lab. Of course, I'm going to get it wrong. I typed it, but I'm going to get it wrong.
Of course you are. We adored this one.
I loved it, and we don't say we liked or disliked anything in reviews. So when you see the review, we're not going to say that, but I'm going to say it now.
For the record, you're getting the behind the scenes. Yeah, no, it was so different, and so I want to use the term avant-garde, but that sounds so pretentious.
Let's walk them through what went down. You're in a simulated space voyage. There's a creepy like safety video that plays. You have your host, who's your stewardess. That's the person pictured. And all of a sudden you go awry and you go into this black hole. And all of a sudden you're met up with a sock puppet alien. Yes, I just said those words, and I'm totally not going crazy right now. A sock puppet alien. And then you get swallowed by a beast, and the stomach microbes of this character, this beast as well, you play the ukulele, and it's just...
And then it gets even weirder, you're watching, you get sent to these different rooms, and like they use Zoom perfectly because they use the Zoom multi-room function, and you can click over into these rooms at any time. And so we clicked around and we tried to see it. Every room ended up with watching somebody wash dishes, which sounds simple, but that's not it. And yet that's it.
It's the first time, and we've watched 200 digital theater productions, is the first time they let the audience go through breakout rooms and the breakout rooms become another digital space.
Yeah.
To get an analog of what you'd be doing live on stage, and there's a couple experimental plays that have done this, you'd have to start in one space, then let anybody roam to whatever room they want to. Excuse me. You would roam to whatever room you want to, and then come back when you're ready. And that is something that you can do digitally, as easy as breathing, but physically
it's harder to do, and it's a lot to ask of your audience. But with this, it was simple, and we, being the critics we are, we were like, we're going to click through every room.
We did.
And every room ended in dishes, but there was some, and I'm oversimplifying it. It was supposed to be...
There's no way to say this accurately because you're just talking about stomach microbes that look like sock puppets playing ukuleles.
And it's so much more complex than that. But just the fact that they had fun using Zoom, which is something we haven't been able to say about a show in a long time. Yeah,
that they used the Zoom as not an analog for a physical environment, but as its own digital space. You're going to hear the words digital space from us
a lot
more often, because we don't think people understand what creating a digital space is. But Continuum is very much a great view of that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, when everybody else is getting Zoom fatigue and jumping ship, they really dug their heels into Zoom and said, hey, this can do something. Yeah. This can do something huge. This can do something fun. And because they leaned into it, we were right along with them on the ride. And it was really fun to see, great to watch, great to be a part of. And I mean, they really did have audience interaction, and like, you're watching and you're talking, and they wanted you to talk in the chat and communicate with them and each other. In fact, I think at one point I typed in our messenger, like, every room ends in dishes, and they're like, every room ends in dishes, and I'm like,
and it was just like, now, and again, it's one of those things where I feel like I can point someone to great digital theater. I can point to someone who's like, we are not just talking about pandemic theater here. We're doing digital theater because you have to. They're doing digital theater because I want to. We should mention that Cincy Fringe also had an option where you could go out and do in-person theater.
Yeah.
They had a stage open and available, so they could have just done in-person theater and tried to do it. But this was something that was so digital theater.
It was built for digital. It was ran in digital, and it's one of the best examples of Zoom I think we've seen ever. And so really good job, you guys.
SOLASTA and Performance Gallery.
All right, next up on the docket we have
Rewind-A Buddy by Jeremy MOTZ.
I can't believe you got Jeremy's name wrong. I can't believe you got Jeremy's name wrong.
I did?
You said, well, you got it right the second try.
I was going to say, I did it wrong. Oh, God.
I'm picking on you. Hugs to Jeremy. He also lost his baby kitty, and we understand completely.
We understand exactly where you are. It's so hard to get over it.
Yeah. 2, Rewind-A Buddy was actually a digital re-up of a show he actually did.
It was previously. An adaptation of a show he did before.
Yeah, but so we're seeing the digital version, and he did it on Zoom. And again, like, using the media to the fullest extent, it was really well done.
It's one of those ones where, and this will be important later in the conversation, I couldn't tell whether it was live stream or on demand. So if you didn't see his stuff on social media talking about he's ready to be Buddy again, he's ready to be there, because it's one of those things where it is done so well. We're watching this thing, and you could talk.
Oh, I can talk?
Yeah,
Jeremy's one of the, I would say, premier solo performers we know. He does a lot of things where he brings you into the world. Yes. He doesn't tell you, he shows you, even though he is the only one there. And so you're watching this thing about this person who's supposed to be, your online buddy having a nervous breakdown about what the meaning of friendship is, and all these things like going on in his own personal realization of what friendship is supposed to be. And that breakdown, it feels like you're watching him literally have a breakdown, but it's just the character.
It's actually very interesting because what I found very challenging to watch it is that you're wondering, okay, is this supposed to be some kind of send up of those VHSs we always got as kids? I remember VHS because I'm a child of the 80s, 90s, and where you got to skip ahead and you got to do these things.
And pick your own adventure.
Pick your own adventures. Like everyone had one based on their favorite cartoon or something. Or was it something deeper? And it actually was. It wasn't nostalgia. It actually used nostalgia to go deeper into
it
the
weaponized
thing.
Nostalgia.
It did, actually.
Yeah.
That, and for playing Jenga on a live stream, that yes. is just like cojones or intestinal fortitude or whatever gender neutral way we should say that. It had some. I wouldn't. If you told me to play Jenga live on stage, I would be like, no.
And so, yeah, you're just watching this person who's supposed to be comforting you breaking down. And he just is so good at creating those moments where his character realizes something. And it's more fun than us realizing something as the audience to watch that character have an epiphany. And he does that a lot with his shows. We saw that in Knife Slinging, and we're seeing it again with Rewind a Buddy.
It's very interesting how he plays with the character psychology. He's much less concerned about what you feel, but watching the play going on in the character's head and the play that we're seeing is very interesting.
Yeah, it's two different shows happening at the same time, and he is very good at developing a character with with a very rich and deep backstory, even though you only have this hour with this character.
And we're getting this backstory just piecemeal the whole time. It's crazy.
So, like, he's opening a yearbook and, like, going through, and then that's a revelation, and you're just picking up pieces and being able to weave that story like that. He's quite talented at it.
And all these shows were really great as live streams because they gave you that feeling of intimacy. They gave you that feeling that we're getting something that was made for us.
Well, and also you kind of got to be in there, I want to say in there with them, right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of unique to live stream, is that you're in the moment there with them. So their moment is your moment. But next up, we're talking more about
video on demand.
Yes, and our first video on demand is
our first video on demand. Oh, You Will Live Under the Sea by Queen City Flash. Can't believe I forgot that. Now, I put a big burden on the Queen City Flash.
Poor Queen City Flash.
They did not deserve this. I did not tell them, but they did not deserve this. Where my entire concept of digital theater being a thing that can be done was seeing Killjoy, Ohio last year. It won Show of the Year for the Young-Howze Theater Awards. I got to this point where, like, unless, like, my life changed watching the show they did in Trey and Jordan's closet. From, like, 11 miles away, they created this wonderful show that was video on demand, too.
Yeah.
And they created this show, and I was like, if they can't do anything this year that's better than what they did in their closet, they're going to have to show me why they got out of the closet. And
you can see why they had a burden on them that they didn't know about. We are so sorry, you guys.
You can see that it was unfair to them, but as I was saying, digital theater doesn't work if, like, what they did out of their closet isn't better than what they did in. Now, I'm going to tell you, I was horribly, horribly wrong.
They were amazing, as usual. As we talk about on demand versus live stream, Trey and Bridget work really well in on demand, mostly because, and Trey, you'll have to correct me next time we get together, Trey writes things that he's going to move on from. So I created it. That was fun. Bye now. And so on demand is like, oh, I can keep it and it's there, and I don't have to try to do it again. It's preserved until I don't ever want to see it again, and then I'm going to create the new one. And so it's funny how like he created Killjoy Ohio last year, and we're like, oh, it's amazing, you're going to keep doing it forever, and he's like, no, I'm going to do something else entirely.
And I think they were talking about this show last year. This was a show that they were going to do live in person last year, but then when COVID happened, they had to change gears.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that just blew my mind, we talk about mind-blowing performances around here, is that they were doing one camera setup, and they're putting stuff in front of the camera, pieces of glass, an aquarium.
Oh, I love that aquarium.
They're talking about putting a mirror up, and so you can see what's behind. They, instead of changing the camera, they put a mirror up to the camera, and now they're watching a performance that we're watching through a mirror. And they made a world with this. And I think this is actually, we didn't talk about this with Killjoy Ohio. This was all a credit to Bridget's directing.
Oh my gosh. For the record, I will die on this hill that Bridget is probably one of the top 10 directors I know, and I will die on this hill, and you can quote me. Her directing, you can feel like, you know how we sometimes say you can feel a director's hand slightly moving things, and she just has that feel. She has a style, and even going from, you know, face on cameras in Killjoy to having more movement, having backgrounds, having aquariums on wheels come up to the screen, you could still tell Bridget's style, which it's flawless. It's
I didn't know this until just recently, trying to get out pictures, trying to figure out, make sure I had everything right. Bridget works with movement and dance, and you can see that in this show. You can see that in the way that they're moving and the way that they're doing scenes by moving. There's great projection work. Big shout out to Rory Sheridan.
Yes.
I need you to record my ringtone. Or narrate my life just for my birthday, November 5th.
Rory was their ace in the hole. Truth be told, because I know Trey and Jordan can act. I know Bridget can
hell out of something.
I know Bridget can direct
the hell out of something.
I know Trey can write
the hell out of something.
But then hearing Rory's voiceover, I sort of like the creepy, all-knowing God voice was fun. It was a lot of fun. So great show. Great use of props. Mm-hmm. Like using the camera and then moving the props in front of the camera was beautiful. And
this was perfect use of a video on demand, because I have a feeling if you were trying to do this live,
it might be a little more dicey.
There might be a lot of like problems, or could be different tech problems. She was like that. I have a feeling they still did it as one take, which was
better than me.
I can feel the tension in the room already. But it was an excellent use of video on demand. I really hope they take that everywhere.
All right. Next up on the docket.
Our next up on the docket should be Sean P. METTE with an unintentional significance, a puppet play about everything and nothing. First and foremost, I'm a puppet person. Your girl, well off before that she ever wanted to do anything in theater, was a puppeteer. I wanted to be the next Jim Henson. I have been Audrey 2 twice, and I've done puppets forever. So I am with puppets. I'm sold.
We saw Sean's work last year at Cincy Fringe.
The bassoonist.
We were not a fan. Sorry, Sean. Don't.
It just didn't hit us the way we think it should have.
But then we saw this, and we're like, oh,
where were the puppets? We could have done that whole show with puppets. We would have been like,
please do more puppets. But all joking aside, it was well put together. It was interesting. The puppets were complex. There's like a skull rabbit puppet, which I think is adorable, which proves how twisted I am.
I mean, we beat up COVID and we light it on fire.
Yes.
There's a spaghetti-haired monster talking about chess.
And then there was a puppet under the water.
Yes.
And that was so cool. He takes a puppet in a lake, and it is beautiful. And this is a time where, are we tiptoeing into film? Probably. Is that a problem for us?
No. We actually think digital theater is not theater. It's not film. It's something.
It lives in the spaces in between.
And so it's great because Dana is a trained screenwriter and did movie critiques, movie reviews well before they met me. And then there is then I'm a theater person. I don't I don't know anything about film. I tried to make movies back when I was a kid. I don't like it. So one of the things that we love is when we can come together and go like, oh, that's amazing. And they're like, oh, that's amazing. And we are saying it's amazing for different reasons.
Entirely. And this was one of those times where he used cuts, he used the editing he did use during his performance well. He didn't just cut to cut, or just because he had a camera overused it. The shots that could be longer stayed longer, and they were really well done. The puppetry was really fun. The use of, like, as I said, there was a puppet in a lake. Doing that and
going there.
Yeah, that's not easy. It is not easy at all. And to do that and to say, okay, I'm going to do puppetry. I'm not going to really have a story, although it felt cohesive to me.
It felt very cohesive to me.
But I'm not really going to have a story. I'm going to focus in on the puppetry, on what I can do with these puppets, on creating these paintings with the camera, which I think is really important. If you're going to use a camera, paint us a picture, and he does a really excellent job of that.
The only weird thing, like the only criticism I have, is that didn't go crazier enough. Like, on my mind, this is something where I hope that he looks up the different ways you can do digital theater, where you can cut up, then make people choose their own track and choose their own adventure,
which would be fun.
Where you find either from Vimeo playlists, or there's No Theater used Happy Yak, which I don't really care about, but would be perfect for this. There's a lot of ways that I would encourage him to make it where people can jumble it up and find their own way through this.
And I mean, I think, like, visually, as I said, he painted excellent pictures. Having the bonfire, having the lake, having all these big set pieces. This couldn't have been on a stage. Could it? No. Yes, but it would have been shrunk and not as beautiful and big as I feel like it deserved. It very much deserved to be on film and kind of go there and push past the limits of, maybe not setting your audience on fire. And so in that way, it was beautiful. I do think Choose Your Own Adventure would be fun. I think this is the kind of show you could expand on. You could take it down a bit for certain events. You can make it bigger for others. Choose Your Own Adventure. There's a lot of, because each scene stood out on its own, you could really have a lot of fun with it. And so I hope Sean keeps working on it, or if he moves on to the next thing, I hope he takes some of this to the next thing. I'd be very excited to see
more puppets.
As you can see, our opinion is more puppets.
Yes, please.
All right. And then our last
is Current by PONES.
Oh my god, PONES.
Now this is one thing where I was trained in dance a little bit in undergrad. I know a lot about dance. I'm usually when we have to review a dance performance, it's me. When we have to review a movie, it's Dana.
And this was a dance movie.
And this was a dance movie, so it was about 80% Dana and me going like, oh yes, those extensions are really hard.
Well, what was funny is, once again, PONES, when we saw them before at Cincinnati Fringe, we were like, okay, they didn't want to do a film, but this is very comfortably seated in film territory.
Like my one big criticism of them last time was just that they didn't lean more into film, and there was things where I wish they had gone bigger, and I wish they had gone smaller. I wish they had explored more of the space, and then they went and did exactly that.
It's like they listened to us, so we're going to take credit for it.
Yeah, you're welcome. You
read our review and you were like, yes, we need to go further because Dana and Ricky said so, and that's what we're going to keep telling ourselves. Real talk though, they took what they did last year, took some of the images and, as I said, paintings with the camera, and then they went even further. And this one, unlike the others where you could say it's a hybrid between film and theater, this is pure film. This is very comfortably a film, and it was beautiful. Like, not unlike Sean, they did bonfires, they did these things in the water, they used all of their I'm guessing mostly Cincinnati landscape, although I know Cincinnati is very close to parts of Kentucky.
They could have used a lot of Covington, Kentucky, and the area around. Yeah.
I'm going to say Cincinnati. You can correct me. I'm often wrong. But they used that landscape, and they used trees and buildings and graffiti and everything. And they told this beautiful story, and we had a hard time taking pictures. Let's just say that we were trying to take screenshots.
You know that show's really, really good, and this happened with You'll Live Under the Sea too, where we didn't take any screenshots. Like the show's over, and went, did you take screenshots?
No.
I didn't take screenshots. Oh no, we're gonna have to play it back.
We have to rewind and get screenshots.
This is one where literally we got 2 screenshots, and we were too busy watching. And one of the things I really latched onto is that with the way of their silhouettes is just how their body moves, how they were using different time and stuff like this. I know this is the casual review, but I'm going to bring out Lobbin. If y'all know Lobbin, Pones, I understood exactly what y'all were doing. Dana doesn't. Everyone else watching this doesn't. But if y'all understand, thank you. There was a great. I could feel their movement, and when you can in dance, when you can feel the movement, you can feel the rhythm. You can almost tell where they're going before they even do it. You're in that kind of syncopated rhythm with the dancer, and you're entranced by it. You see why dance and music were the first art forms. Theater came second. And what we love is, because we know a lot of dancers don't have that whole, it has to be in person. Dancers make a movie. Dancers do what they've got to do.
As long as they're dancing, it's dance. It doesn't matter whether it is done in person, live, pre-recorded, with a camera, without a camera, on a street corner where no one's watching. It is still dance. And that's one of my favorite things. Another thing I really loved about this is they used poetry. I think yet again they used
spoken word again.
And I don't want to say I haven't seen dance to spoken word. That's a lie. I went to college. You always see dance with spoken word.
It's been there, like it forever.
But in this case, just every body movement hit with certain words in the spoken word, and so you had these like punches to your gut of like these visuals with the words that were happening, and they did an amazing job. I mean, they were already amazing, and we actually knew we were going to keep our eyes on them, so to speak, when we saw one of their guys breakdancing,
at the protest.
At a protest, and
right in front of the officers, and it was crazy.
He was breakdancing at the police officers, and I'm like, yes, whatever that is
Pones. That's 100%.
I want more of that, and I think we got it. I think they kind of kept their promise.
And this is like with all the video on demands we saw. Video on demand for me is about going bold and going farther
and going bigger.
Going underwater, going with fire. Like the first risk that we always know as a kid is too high, too far, too fast. Fire, water. It's just those fundamental like elemental dangers. And I feel like video on demand has to like, are we going too fast? Are we going too far? Are we near? And it's those things that if I was an audience member going where you were going, I'm like, y'all go ahead. I'll be over here on the bank.
Yeah, but it works out really well. Okay, we're now close to the end. We have 2 more things we want to talk about.
We're going to wrap up and we had some final thoughts about Cincy Fringe and how they work.
So our last thought is about Cincy Fringe as a whole and Mira's Kitchen, the show. Mira's Kitchen was
written by Beena Raghavendran, and it's a show about something we understand completely. OCD, intrusive thoughts, anxiety, and but it wrapped it up in something we didn't know about a lot, which is traditional Hindu cooking and just family. And it starts out as a live stream, as a supposed live stream, where she's trying to raise enough money to save her restaurant. And then something we do understand, intrusive thoughts break in, and then it ensues.
1, welcome to Club OCD. We are so sorry to remember.
Yeah.
2, we kind of have to go there. And so let's start by saying this isn't an attack. But we have to go there and we have to say, my problem with Mirror's Kitchen wasn't that it wasn't live, but that it was played live. And nobody was informed it wasn't live.
We all thought it was a live stream, and then just there are things where people were asking. We know a lot of people were asking, "Wait, is this really live, or is this on demand, or is this pre-recorded?" And about the time we saw what I call the Steve Urkel, Stefan Urkel thing, where she's meeting her other self, and then I think her hair was shorter when we went to the live talkback. That we started to know that this was pre-recorded and broadcast live. Now this does exist. It's called a broadcast.
Yeah, there's a lot of festivals and things that do live broadcasts. Which
Timothy Mooney is doing it in some festivals. I'm Your Hamlet has done that, and as a lot of times they just say they're doing it and everyone's fine.
But I think the one thing that kind of hurt my feelings, and not that my feelings are the most important feelings, but kind of hurt mine, is that I felt like I put Mirror's Kitchen above something else I could have been watching at the same time.
Yeah.
And then especially when everything went sideways with Little Dude and we just didn't make it to any more shows. Not for lack of trying, it just was hard. I felt like we may have put something behind that should have been seen. And if it was on demand, we could have watched it on demand with the other on-demand shows, and that would have been fine. There's no shame in our minds, at least, on being on demand. And I know that there's a word I'm looking for, stigma. That's the word. There's stigma to on-demand versus live, and it's not really theater unless it's live or anything like that. And you're not going to get that from us.
No.
We think there's a place for both of them.
That's why we start off by talking about why you would do on-demand and why you would do live streaming. I understand that that's what Bina wanted to do. And like I said, broadcasting is a thing. I actually say that this is one of those things where Cincy Fringe I'm not going to say the words let us down. I'm going to say the words didn't think it all the way through of like announcing what's a live stream and being pure about it being completely live and being pure about everything being on demand. And if it was they were going to do some broadcasting where you're playing a pre-recorded thing live for people to watch, they should have announced that. They should have said, this is a broadcast of a pre-recorded thing.
And I think it was sort of a miscommunication and maybe an opportunity in the future to just keep that in mind for not just Cincinnati, but for all theaters. Just if you're doing a broadcast of something pre-recorded, if you're doing live, if you're doing on demand, just make sure that the titles are clear.
Just make sure the titles are clear. And I will say that Bina, other than that, we really connected. It was a very beautiful,
well done show. Amazing, great use of effects, great use of the camera. Things that we would be saying that we've said about a lot of the on-demand shows. Yeah,
and if we had more broadcasters, we would have cut this into 3 sections and probably done that. And on top of that, just when we talk about Cincy Fringe, we do feel like if we were talking about on demand is a soda and live streaming is coffee, I feel like with a lot of their live in person stuff, we talked to a couple of other people. We talked everywhere to a lot of people who weren't in Cincinnati at the time. It felt like they did a lot of priority to live in person stuff, and we didn't see any of that. And then we did.
And I mean, last year they had the talk back with the the artists.
Yeah.
There were meetups and things like that, and I get that it was all online, so all of that had to be online. And I think one of the problems you have as we start into hybridization is that you're going to have to create a room for your online people and just have those meet and greets, have something that's special for them so they feel like they're part of it.
And that's why I said the words digital space. Everyone, when we say digital space and we say post-geography, they think we always mean digital theater. No, what we actually were talking about amongst us is even if they just had one space in the on Jefferson Street that was for us that was a digital space. And digital space is just whenever you... That Stampede was a single 8-pound cat running down the hallway.
Yeah, sorry.
When you just create a digital space, it means you're aware that there's people who are not physically here that are paying money to be with you. And so you need to let them know and feel like they can be here in the space for them. You got to hold space for them.
And I mean, we don't know what this will mean for different theaters. We don't know whether or not it means bringing in a team that's your digital team who focuses in on making meet and greets and events for your digital audience. We don't know if it's doing your live festival. Full speed cat doing your
sounds like a herd of elephants, 1 8-pound cat
doing your live festival, and then maybe a week later doing a digital festival afterwards. We're not sure. That's going to be balanced for different people,
and we don't claim to be like telepaths that knew exactly what was going on in the staff of No Theater Cincinnati's mind. They might have been run ragged and gone a million different ways. What we wanted them to let them know is that we know a lot of other people craved more, and we wanted to feel like we were part of this fringe, and we wanted to feel like there was a connection, but we didn't feel that connection.
So we'll see. I mean, we don't know if they're going to do hybrid next year or just in person. But if you are running a festival and you decided to do hybrid, like Hollywood Fringe is doing hybrid in that all their shows are going to be live stream and in person in California, which will be at digitally in August.
If you're gonna do that,
just so you know that you can create these online spaces, have an online team, maybe have people to kind of create community both in person and online.
And the biggest thing we should understand is as we're going forward together, we've seen 200 digital theater reviews, but they were close to. It's what we would call pandemic theater. You're doing theater because you had to. And now we're moving on to a place where if you choose digital theater, you're choosing to do it. You don't have to much anymore because in person's coming back. What we would say is we're going to have to treat this like it's a whole new thing again and figure our way through and find our way together. So let's work together to see how we're going to go from here.
All right, you guys, this was a blast again. We will try to keep doing these once a month, but as we said, this month was a little crazy.
So that's reviews and drinks.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
On the blog right now is our 200 digital theater review. We'll see you again hopefully after the next one.